Some towns are forgotten for a reason, not because they're small, or quiet, or tucked away from the world. They're forgotten because what happens there at night should never be remembered or spoken of. The streets empty too early, the streetlights flicker as if struggling against a darkness that doesn't belong, and every home carries a story no visitor could imagine. This is the story of a town that wasn't on most maps, where children learned to hide under beds long before the sun went down, and adults whispered warnings that outsiders thought were superstition. But what happened in this forgotten town wasn't superstition. It was a systematic nightmare, a place where danger walked freely after dusk, and the people who lived there had no way to escape what came with the night. The town that time forgot. The town itself looked harmless during the day. A scattering of houses along a cracked main street, a few convenience stores, a gas station with a flickering sign. Birds chirped in the morning, and kids played near the old railway tracks. Tourists passing through would have noted nothing unusual. But the locals knew, they always knew. Every sundown carried a warning. Windows were shuttered tightly, doors bolted, and families gathered together. The town had a history, one that most visitors never heard, one that seemed too strange to believe. There were rumors of disappearances, of people vanishing into the dark without a trace. Some claimed the local authorities ignored these events. But the truth was more sinister. The town's police force seemed to understand something outsiders didn't. They too feared the night. They locked themselves in, patrolled only in pairs, and rarely reported what they saw. People didn't leave after dark because of crime alone. They left because the night itself seemed alive, carrying a presence that moved silently, invisibly, and unrelenting. The first signs of danger. It began subtly. Shadows in alleys stretching farther than they should. Footsteps echoing in empty streets. Pets disappearing without explanation. A single scream cutting across the town on a quiet night, dismissed by the authorities as someone having a nightmare, or an animal fight, or the wind. But the locals knew better. There was a pattern, a rhythm to the terror that no one could explain. Doors left locked were found open. Windows that had been secure were pried. Objects moved from one room to another without reason. It wasn't theft. Items of value were untouched. People reported seeing figures at the edge of their vision, too quick to fully recognize, always gone when looked at directly. Those who dared speak publicly about it were warned subtly at first, and then with threats that were impossible to ignore. The town's secret was simple. After dark, no one was safe, and no one who crossed that line came back the same or at all. The night they knew it was real. The story that defined the town began with a group of teenagers who dared to stay out past the usual curfew. They laughed nervously as they walked through the cracked streets, cameras in hand, trying to catch footage of the ghosts the adults whispered about. At first, nothing happened. They made jokes, dared each other to run along the old railway tracks, and joked about the town's reputation. But then the temperature dropped suddenly, unnaturally. A fog rolled in that wasn't there minutes before. Shadows moved against the light of their flashlights. And then they heard it, a whispering. Not words, just breath, close enough to feel against the skin, but coming from no one they could see. Panic set in. One by one, they ran. One of them tripped, turned, and saw something crouched in the mist, long limbs bending unnaturally. They fled. When the police arrived after their frantic calls, they found empty streets. No trace of the figures the teens had seen. Only the lingering fog and their own panicked footprints. That night confirmed it for the town. The danger wasn't a story. It was real, and it was everywhere. The disappearances that never made headlines. Over the years, dozens vanished. Not all at once, but with a quiet inevitability that made it impossible to track. A farmer never returned from the fields at dusk. A schoolteacher walking home found only her backpack left by the road. A delivery driver disappeared mid-route. Truck found abandoned miles away. The authorities gave vague explanations. Accidents, voluntary disappearances, misadventures. But families knew the truth. Each disappearance happened after dark. Each person taken was last seen alive after the sun went down. And in every case, the local police refused to go into detail, their faces tightening with unease when pressed. The town itself became complicit in silence. People stopped questioning. They stopped reporting. They learned to accept that nightfall was not just a marker on the clock, it was a rule they could not break. The pattern emerges. Eventually, a few brave outsiders tried to investigate. Journalists, documentarians, true crime enthusiasts drawn by the eerie tales. They arrived with cameras, microphones, and questions. Some stayed in the town for weeks, attempting to track every rumor, speak to every resident, and document any strange activity. But the deeper they dug, the more dangerous it became. Surveillance cameras were destroyed mysteriously. Files on previous disappearances disappeared, and one by one, the investigators started to feel watched. Phones malfunctioned, vehicles broke down. One man who tried to leave reported seeing a figure in the rearview mirror, standing outside the car, silent, and staring only to find no one there when he arrived at the next town. The pattern was unmistakable. The danger followed those who sought the truth. It wasn't just random. It was intelligent, calculated, and patient. And the town had learned to live under its rules, carefully teaching the next generation that after dark, the streets belonged to someone or something else. Survival in the forgotten town. The residents developed strategies over decades. Lights were left on inside homes. Children were never allowed out after sunset. Doors had multiple locks, reinforced with chains and metal bars. Families moved in groups if they had to leave the house after dark. And yet, even these precautions were only partially effective. The dangers seemed to know the layout of the town better than anyone. Some mornings, families would wake to windows left untouched but slightly ajar, doors unlocked despite being secured, and possessions moved to new locations. Residents spoke of the Watchers, a name passed down in hushed tones for whatever haunted the town. They said it was not a single entity, but many shadows, eyes in the dark, creatures or humans who had adapted to the night. The point was clear. If you underestimated the darkness, it would claim you. And everyone knew someone had been claimed for looking too long, asking too many questions, or defying the unwritten rules of survival. The incident that shook the town to its core. The most notorious event happened one year when a young couple ignored the warnings. Newly moved to the town, unaware of its reputation, they decided to walk home late after visiting friends. At first, all seemed normal. The streetlights flickered slightly, the fog rolling in thinly, but nothing alarming. And then, the shadows emerged, not slowly, not cautiously, but all at once. Figures moved in ways no human could, gliding over fences, vanishing behind corners, reappearing in doorways, and surrounding them. The couple ran. One made it home, screaming, the other was never found. Authorities investigated, but nothing was recovered. Friends reported hearing the survivors' screams echo across the empty streets for hours. And for the first time, the entire town understood that the rules they had obeyed for generations were not just precaution, they were the only thing standing between life and disappearance. The legacy of the night. Over decades, the town became a cautionary tale. Travelers who accidentally wandered in after dark often never left or were never heard from again. Local legends grew, mutating into tales of creatures, spirits, and curses. But the truth, according to those who lived there, was simpler. After nightfall, no one was safe. And no matter what precautions you took, you could still be vulnerable if you misjudged the darkness. Parents passed the knowledge to children. Teachers whispered warnings in classrooms. Elderly residents shared coded signals and escape routes that outsiders would never notice. Every building, street, and alley was mapped and memorized for survival. It was a town living under siege by an unseen enemy, and the enemy had learned patience. The warning to outsiders. Even today, signs exist on the outskirts of the town, subtle enough to be dismissed but chilling when understood. Return before dark. Respect the shadows. Do not linger. Locals know they cannot rely on outsiders to respect the rules, and they know the night does not forgive. Few dare stay beyond sundown, and those who do report whispers, fleeting movements, and a sensation of being watched. Cameras fail, recordings glitch, lights dim unexpectedly. No one can explain it. And yet, everyone knows the same fact. The town is not haunted by spirits alone. It is haunted by the consequences of ignoring the darkness. A lesson learned, over and over, in the most terrifying way imaginable. After dark, nothing is predictable, and no one is safe. The Forgotten Town exists on no tourist maps, in no guidebooks, and is avoided by anyone who values their safety. But for those who hear its story, it serves as a warning. Darkness is not merely the absence of light, it can be the presence of something far worse. And while the people who live there have learned to survive, outsiders who wander too late into its streets may never leave. The town is a living testament to fear, patience, and the power of what lurks unseen. And the truth is simple. After dark, no one is safe, not even for a moment. The Forgotten Town waits silently, and it waits for everyone.